Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
Welcome. This is the Sports Trapp Podcast, and my name is John Trapp. And as always, the lovely, talented Mr. C Rod.
What it do? What's up, Houston?
And of course, on the ones and twos, Mr. Qual. What up? How we doing, fellas?
Good. It's been a
Big.
long week.
Hell, oh my God, I've been waiting to do this show for a while now. Unfortunately, there's a big trade that went down. We'll get into that pretty soon.
Fortunately or unfortunately?
Oh yeah. Well, we waited so long, but hey, somebody got on that IG. I like that, Mr. Qual. You hear about this trade that went down?
Talking about Brody?
Brody Westbrook in the house.
Brody and the beard.
So where does this leave the NBA? Who's the best duo? And what do the odds look like now? And we got to get into some little Texans news. Texans kind of making some little news on the ESPN and the Twitter blogs.
They're still an NFL team?
The NFL team with no GM that has a little something to do with Jadeveon Clowney and his franchise tender.
Oh, wow.
Woo! We're going to get into that a little bit
Finally
later
some
as
football
well.
talk. Let's talk of football. Who's tired of NBA?
I don't know. But this show will be dominated about this trade that went down. And for that, the Houston Rockets got Westbrook. And to celebrate, because I think it's a reason to celebrate, a little toast we need to do. We got I brought to you Rocket Fuel, Vietnamese coffee porter made by none other than Eighth Wonder Brewery. Little infused with milk and Vietnamese coffee. Pleasantly robust. Dark roast. Complicated. Complemented by a little subtle creaminess.
It's kind of you're making it sound very sexual. I feel a little uncomfortable right now.
Where am I going with this?
You're the worst bartender server. You can
Hey,
sell me
listen.
on none of that.
Listen.
This makes me not want to drink it. You said complicated compliment.
Hey, listen, man. I'm so ready to get into it because this has been sitting here for a while. So
Well, I mean,
don't want
honestly,
to-
what we could say is this: that there's no denying that Russell Westbrook is definitely rocket fuel. The energy, the athleticism that he brings, he's definitely going to fuel the Rockets in a different direction than what Chris Paul was. And we could definitely get into that in a few minutes. But here you go, Qual.
Appreciate you.
Always, man.
Yeah, man. I'm really energized by this trade. So if you've been living under a rock and waiting all this time to hear our podcast, I appreciate it. But the Rockets have traded for Russell Westbrook. It's hard to say that 5 times in a row. I've been practicing all day. But, again, the Rockets have traded for Russell Westbrook, former MVP, formerly of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They had to get rid of Chris Paul, CP3. And listen, I know this fueled the speculation. I even had a couple people coming out tell me, hey, you need to apologize for the way we came down harsh on reports out there that CP3 and James Harden no longer get to they didn't mesh too much anymore and they didn't want to be on the same team. But I tell you what, man, after this trade that went down on face value to me, it's just basically one for the other. Westbrook for Chris Paul. We had to sweeten the pot a little bit, but what we gave up was 2 protected picks and 2 swaps that they have in 2021 and 2025, I believe. And so when you look at it like that, we have 1 pick that we're giving up 7 years in advance. And then if we suck by some, for whatever reason, it's top 4 pick protected. So with that being said, it's just an easy decision, in my opinion. It's an easy decision when it comes to trading a 30-year-old veteran who in no means is a bad player. But when you put it up between CP3 at 34 years old and an MVP a year removed at 30, going into his prime, has already played with somebody of a James Harden type player in the past with OKC, and they made it work. And say you believe that James Harden's a different player today, well, Russell Westbrook's a different player. And if you think that they can't mesh now, well, you got both of them at a better point in their professional careers at the same time, playing on the same team on MVP levels on one team. Don't you think that would be an easy decision if you were a GM? If you were a GM and you had on one hand CP3 and you had on the other hand Westbrook, it's an easy decision for me. Swap for swap.
I think it would be a kind of a hard decision for me. And the reason why I say that is because I still think that CP3 is still the point guard. I think he's been a great point guard his whole career, and he did bring something to the table when he joined the Rockets when they made this trade 2 years ago, and we almost went to the finals. You know, we almost were able to dethrone the Golden State Warriors. But here's the problem with that whole process is that Chris Paul health. When he went down, that pretty much cost us the title, right? We can all agree. If you're a Rockets fan, if you're an NBA fan, you know that Rockets had the Golden State Warriors on the brink of losing. And we probably would have went and played the Cavaliers, and we would have beaten them based off our talent on the team. And then the next year, you're hoping that Chris Paul can pick up where he left off, and unfortunately, he couldn't. He got injured early in the season, and then when he did finally come back, he just wasn't the same Chris Paul. It's almost as if he lost a lot of his athleticism. And even with that being said, I know a lot of times James Harden gets a lot of flack that he was ball dominant, but he had no other choice because Chris Paul couldn't even beat his men off the dribble. And it was kind of hard and sad to see that. And then the crazy thing about it is that so many fans this year alone were saying how this was a horrible contract. How could the Houston Rockets organization give Chris Paul the maximum contract? Well, in order to get him to come to Houston, we had to promise a maximum contract, right? So we gave him the maximum contract. In hindsight, if he doesn't get hurt and we win the championship, no one's bitching and complaining about the contract. Now, we not only trade what was said to be the worst contract in the NBA, not only did we get younger, but we got more athletic. So those same fans that were complaining about Chris Paul's contract are now crying and complaining about Russell Westbrook's having Russell Westbrook. And so I think as a GM, you can look at it, and I don't know if you've been listening to D'Antoni lately. You know, they've been interviewing him. Every time I ask about Westbrook, he keeps praising Chris Paul. I think that in hindsight, I think D'Antoni really wanted to try to win a championship with Chris Paul. You have to like his tenacity, his basketball IQ, but unfortunately, he kind of just wore his time here up. And obviously, him and James Harden, you know, they did have some clashing moments, and that's kind of been the reputation of Chris Paul wherever he's went. But if you're the GM, and especially with an owner like Tillman Fertitta, like he wanted to make an impact, especially with the top heavyweights, and especially with these super duos being created. And how many teams can say they have 2 MVPs? So when you look at it, for me, it would be a hard decision, but at the end of the day, hands down, Russell Westbrook increases and betters your team.
You made an interesting point where, you know, you're saying that it's a hard decision. And I don't think that it's a light decision, but it's a decision that if you're trying to get better, if you're trying to keep up, if you're trying to win a championship, it's one you have to make. And when you do these comparisons, like you said, D'Antoni in the interview was always of high praise for CP3. And that's a completely accurate, because he is, and what he did for the team was very good. And he was a very good point guard. He still is a very good point guard. But when you put apples to apples, almost categorically, whether it's the injury bug. I think all but like 3 seasons, Westbrook hasn't played at least 70 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a very durable player considering his athletic abilities. A lot of times, players who are extremely athletic, they get plagued by these little injuries here and there. But he's been a very durable NBA player. And not only that, but we could tell Chris Paul struggled immensely trying to get past his man. Westbrook is constantly getting past his man. I mean, his energy level, his ability to rebound, his ability to find the open man, his tenacity on the court, and he's only 30 years old, right?
Right.
I mean, you have the two of the best, I would say 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA in their prime on the same team who've been playing together since they were 10 years old.
No, these are the top 5 players in the NBA.
Well,
I mean, they've been in the MVP vote for the past 5 years.
I'm saying top 10 just because a lot of people have criticized, and that's another thing. They're, and I'm actually really disappointed because on Clutch Fans, and you know how much I love Clutch Fans, I think it's a great forum. I think it's one of the best forums out there,
Shout out Clutch Fans.
especially Clutch. He's done a great job, but man, he definitely overreacted. He felt like the Rockets gave up too much to get Westbrook, and not only that, but then fans were saying, well, like, how is Russell Westbrook even going to even remotely be something that's going to help the team when he can't shoot? He doesn't shoot threes. He's actually, I think, the highest percentage of threes he shot ever was like last year, I think 36%, right? But pretty much in his career, he shot a pretty low percentage of threes. But here's the thing. What he may not necessarily be the best shooter, and I hear people saying they need to call him Russell Westbrook, which is stupid, because even when I don't need Russell Westbrook to shoot threes. Matter of fact, the biggest complaint that a lot of Rockets fans have been talking about is him shooting the mid-range game. He can do that, and he can drive to the hole.
I think there's a misconception when it comes down to analytics. One example is the whole layup, foul, or 3-point shooter or shot that supposedly Daryl Morey wants you to take every time. But I think what it is that may be the case, but you also want to get to your best shot, most accurate shot, the most beneficial as far as like percentage wise. And for all intents and purposes, when you look at the the range that Brody has, he shoots at a higher clip overall than Chris Paul. Chris Paul actually had his worst season last year.
He did.
Right?
He did.
Now, Westbrook shot 2 years ago at 35% from the 3. Last year, he did just shy of 30. But once you get to where he's the one catching the ball and shooting the ball, he's actually at 33%. A lot of the shots that he had to take, he had to create on his own. And and I understand where people don't understand how they mesh, but having somebody like D'Antoni, who has created an offense that helped out Steve Nash, that has helped out Jeremy Lin, that has helped out when we had questions of even Chris Paul and James Harden, he made it work. And he's absolutely the right coach to make it work between James Harden and Westbrook. So when you look at the entirety of it, I think, one, when you're worried about will they mesh, I think 100% they will. One, they've played together. You know, 2, they got a great coach who has the ability or has the offense that will help them create off for each other and for the team, whether it's staggering their minutes, whether they're playing at the same time. And you look at the highlights when they played OKC, they have no problem passing to each other.
Not at all.
And then it's going to be fun. Capella is going to probably have his best season of his career.
Probably his best season. You know, what if I told you that, Qua and John, that we could trade for Westbrook and still be able to keep Capella, Tucker.
That's another thing.
Eric Gordon. Like, you would think I'm crazy. Like, how that's impossible, right? And still get rid of CP3, who is, at this point in his career, a bad contract, right? Not a bad player, but a bad contract for his age. That's the crazy thing about in all this. And what no one's talking about, because it seems like it's interesting how the media was super pumped up about LeBron James and AD playing together, right? Or Kawhi Leonard and Paul George playing together. Those guys have never played together, so we don't know how they're gonna mesh, right? Because I think that actually it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how Kawhi Leonard is going to play with Paul George because they're both alpha males, right? The one thing that no one's talking about is Kevin Durant had his best season in OKC, right? When he won MVP. Who was his point guard?
Russell Westbrook.
Okay. Paul George had his best season ever in his career last year and it was considered to be
Top
MVP.
3 MVP.
Right. Who was his point guard?
Russell Westbrook.
So for all these naysayers and haters on Westbrook, on Mr. Brody, obviously he knows how to make his teammates better. He obviously knows how to make this skill. We know that James Harden is a better shooter than Russell Westbrook. You don't think that he's going to utilize that? I mean, people fail to realize that Westbrook is a smart guy and he wants to win.
We gave up 2 picks for him.
Mhm.
For Russell Westbrook. Paul George, they gave up 5 picks for him. For Jimmy Butler, for all the sources and everybody was talking about, we would have gave up PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, and Capella.
Absolutely. It would have been horrible. And then you talking about something that's not going to mesh. I honestly, as much as we wanted Jimmy Buckets because of his attitude and the reputation that follows him everywhere he goes, it might have not have been a good fit. And I actually think that the Rockets came out not only on top, but I want to give a shout out to Presti. I know he gets a lot of flack for breaking up what could have been the potential. Remember, they had Durant, Westbrook, and James Harden on one team, right?
Okay.
But I will say this: he's made some mistakes. But reasons why I'm going to give him his dues is because when Paul George demanded that trade, right? When Paul George demanded that trade, that messed up everything that he kind of put together. Because for him to get Paul George to not only trade for Paul George, but for get him to committed to stay, that was big, right? When he realized he had to break up the team because they couldn't go back into the luxury tax, they're going to have to start all over again. He could have just easily traded Westbrook to anybody, right?
Okay.
He asked Westbrook because, that's one thing I like about Westbrook is how loyal he was to Oklahoma and how he wanted to make that his home, how he wanted to make that team a champion. When they asked him, the team that he wanted to go to was the Houston Rockets. And they found a way to make that happen. And that means even taking on Chris Paul's contract, and now they're trying to trade that. And,
Yeah, I never thought that Chris Paul would ever play a game.
he's not. I mean, obviously he's not. But, I mean, I just think that for all the mistakes he's made, at least that he was loyal to Westbrook.
I hope that works
out
out for him. I really do. I hope that works out for him in the sense of his loyalty to the players in some way, back way, form, or fashion. I hope it gets his team, if he's not fired by then, it gets his team back to prominence. Later on down in his career, when these players actually become maybe front office type people, maybe it works out in the back end for him then. But I've been saying this for a while now. Think of it like this. You had Jeremy Lamb and Kenyon Martin. Do you remember who they traded Jeremy Lamb and Kenyon Martin? The Rockets?
For James Harden.
James Harden. Chris Paul for Westbrook. So you have Jeremy Lamb, who at best was a rotational player, no longer in the NBA.
He's still playing in the NBA.
Okay.
He comes off. I mean, he gets about 20 minutes a game because he
Not
has
even. Not even.
he can shoot the three.
Kevin Martin? He's not in the
He's
NBA
definitely
no more.
not in the NBA no more.
And you have Chris Paul.
Mhm.
And you got 2 MVPs for him. Who won that trade?
Rockets.
Absolutely. And then you couldn't keep Kevin Durant. So 3 MVPs.
Well, I also want to say that they actually, when you think about Kevin Martin, they got Kevin Martin, and that was actually a pretty good deal because they got rid of Tracy McGrady. Like, Daryl Morey's always come up with ways to stack and build to get to where he wants to be. And this has been like, what, a 15-year tenure now that he's been working on this and building and slowly building and being able to get his man. Granted, when you go back and you look at what happened between James Harden and Oklahoma City Thunder, it's sad that they didn't give him that extra pay. They would, I think it was like what, $5 or $7 million more. If they would have just done that, they would have kept that team together. And we can't predict what would have happened, but they had the greatest chance of actually being.
They went to the final.
Well, I know, but they actually
say that
would've-
out loud.
They went to the
Like,
finals.
I just sometimes you got to say things out loud. You had a team with 3 MVPs. The very next year, after you go to the finals, you break up that team. Essentially, it was the beginning of the end, and it took a long route to end it, but it was the beginning of the end.
And it spoke wonders about the small market teams because they actually became a small market team that could easily dominate the NBA for years to come.
What I think it was like something like $8 million, but you're saying like 4 or 5. I don't. I mean, regardless,
But
that's
even
all
if
that,
it's to me $8 million and keeping
That's what I'm
James Harden
saying.
as your sixth man, who turned out to be one of the top 5 players in the NBA, I'm just saying, like
Oh.
you definitely $8 million is basically $4.
So, in closing, of just the trade, I just think that the warts of the Houston Rockets and everybody thinking that this wasn't a good trade. You essentially have somebody that's better version of Chris Paul become Chris, and it get put into Chris Paul's role alongside with James Harden, who is essentially an MVP with an MVP. Then you worry about your draft picks that you won't see until 7 years from now. But in 7 years from now, both of those contracts are up. So if any one of those players wanted to go on and move to another team, i.e. Russell Westbrook wanting to join the Rockets, but in the future wanting to leave the Rockets and join another team, or James Harden, vice versa, you essentially could get those picks right back. So I don't want to hear anybody else worrying about the Rockets. The Rockets will be fine. If Daryl Morey can put them in a situation like this, trust me, he can put them 7 years from now in a similar situation like this.
And I mean, honestly, if you don't have the top 3 pick in the NBA draft, why is anyone crying and complaining about that? And chances are the Rockets, and you go back in the history of Les Alexander being the owner, he never wanted a team to basically just lose out to get high draft picks. He wanted them to always be competitive. The last time the Rockets had a number 1 pick was when we picked up Yao Ming. We have always been range from 15 to the 26 pick.
Name the last one that we picked within that range. I think it was Harrell?
Yeah, Montrez. So I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you can pick up a serviceable player, but I mean, look at that kid that's killing it right now in the D League that they picked up that was undrafted, and he's been just doing it, an
Daniel
incredible.
House?
No, there's another guy that
You talking about
Clemens.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
he's been killing. So like, there's a lot of players out there that maybe if you don't get in the draft, you can still find just players you can put in the system that's going to benefit.
Very, very
You know what
much
I mean?
so. Very much so. Now I brought up the Clippers and Harrell and Patrick Beverly, and we all know that George Paul and Kawhi Leonard both joined the Clippers.
Paul George.
That's Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Excuse me.
So George Paul, it's a new player.
It's a little rocket fuel. It's a little late. Anyways, when you think about it, you got the duo in the Clippers. You got the duo in Houston. You have the duo in L.A. with AD and LeBron James. You got Embiid, Simmons in Philly.
I'm talking about someone who can't shoot.
You got Giannis, Middleton, and the Bucks. Who else out there?
KD and Kyrie.
Yeah, but that's next year.
Yeah, but you guys still count it.
Okay, so we'll count it. And then you got Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. But honestly, out of those teams that we mentioned, I only see Philly and Milwaukee really making a run. Kind of feel like Boston's fell off. I kind of feel like KD and Kyrie aren't gonna really do anything. So it's just those two teams, and I think it's going to be a cakewalk for Milwaukee, to be honest with you.
You're time out. We forgot Zion and Lonzo Ball.
7 years from now.
Okay, just they're not a duo.
If you put all those duos in a 2-on-2 tournament, who's winning?
Ooh, that's interesting.
See, I right there, I got a little edge on the Clippers, but it's a 5-on-5.
It's true. Yeah.
And I got to give the Rockets the edge. The Clippers on a 2-on-2 because they both have the ability to score. They're both good defenders, but they're also their size is bigger than Westbrook and Harden.
I don't know. That'd be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think that would be the most interesting.
Well, I mean, the player awards just came out, and who was the hardest player to hold?
You talking about Giannis?
No,
The player awards.
The player awards. The NBA, they gave out the award for who was the hardest player to hold.
James Harden.
It was James Harden.
Yeah.
So if you ever watch, like every summer, James Harden's out there balling. Like he loves to play basketball. It's not like he's going 1-on-1 with scrubs. He's out there playing with other elite athletes, and he's still dominating.
Well, I like what Gilbert Arenas and Lou Williams was talking about on their podcast. It's like people get tired of holding James Harden. Like when they see him come up on the calendar, they don't want to hold him constantly because he's constantly going to get the ball.
And he's going to try to score. And that's another thing he said. We watched that thing together. He's going to want to try to do you. So that's in the back of your head. He's going to want to try to like cross you over and make you look foolish. Ain't nobody want that.
So as a GM, who would you want? You essentially you got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right? And then James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and then you got LeBron James and AD are going to be a force next year for however long it's going to last.
I mean, I guess when he comes out there with that like crutch and scooter, like LeBron James can just like what no one's really talking about is the fact that Kawhi Leonard has been very lucky. I don't want to say lucky because I don't want to knock him because I think he's a great player and I think he has the potential to be like superb, but he has been in like really good systems. This is the first time where he's kind of on his own. You know what I mean? Like he's picked his team, and I don't know. Like he was with Popovich, and Popovich took him to another level, right? And then he went to Toronto, and he was surrounded by a stacked team, right? What's gonna happen when he? I mean, is this his team or is this the Clippers? Is this because it feels like this is his team,
right? And
everybody else is on his team.
But he's not that type of player, though.
Yes, he is.
You think so?
We found out he's this type of player when you secretly go behind closed doors and tell somebody to demand a trade.
Right. But it's not when he's on the court. It's not like give me the ball. I'm about to take over.
Not yet.
You think so?
I think it's going to be. Let's see. Let's see because right now
he played very well in the system in Toronto.
Right, but now the world is in his hands. He showed that we talked about this last episode. He's the boss right now, right? Okay. And I think that he's out to prove that he's better than LeBron James. And so, how is this going to affect the way he plays? And is he going to demand the ball? It's going to be curious to see the dynamics because Paul George ain't no joke. He's one of my favorite. Actually, he probably is my favorite player in the NBA. So. I'm curious to see how that's really going to mesh. As much criticism and how much these analysts are coming out and dogging Brody and the Beard, how are those two going to play together? And whose team is it? Somebody has to be the alpha.
I think you brought up a great point. How will they play together? Because essentially, to me, they play the same position. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, Beverly doesn't look like a creator. Oh man.
Not a creator.
Do you
love the guy though?
What Lowry did in the finals was amazing. One of the things that I think he was very much underrated and very much an unsung hero of the finals was Kyle Lowry and how he just was a quarterback on the
He was
court.
The heart of the team,
and so
it's been that way for quite some time.
To me, that's gonna be where they come up, where they're gonna have to figure out during the season how they're going to have to mesh and build and offensively because defensively they look amazing.
Okay, so you have 3 seconds left on the shot clock. And who are you going to give the ball to?
Kawhi Leonard.
Are you
Kawhi
sure?
Leonard, yeah.
You think he's a better shooter than Paul George?
I don't necessarily believe that, but
Paul George is a better shooter than he is.
okay, but at the end of the game,
See, that's where it's going to get interesting and fishy
Well-
right there. Because I can see Paul George getting upset like, I'm the best shooter here. I should get the last shot. I'm just telling you.
oh man, that's one of the most iconic shots of all time with Kawhi Leonard.
But here's the
bounce
thing.
on the rim,
Kawhi
game
Leonard,
7.
I know, but Kawhi Leonard's game, how many shots has he hit like that in his career? Not that many. Not only that, one thing I can say about Kawhi Leonard, I think that it's part of the game that's kind of missed in the NBA as far as a skill set, is that he dribbles to get in his position to shoot
Right.
his shot.
Right.
Right? He's not the greatest creator. Like, he doesn't
No.
have like amazing dribble. He's not super fast,
Right.
but he knows how to pivot to his shot. Right?
Right.
You don't think that this is going to be more so, especially with the elite West? They're not going to pay attention to that, because I've seen where people have stopped and have caused Kawhi Leonard some trouble.
Right.
Is he going to defer the ball? Because I saw in Toronto where there's a couple of times where he didn't pass the ball. He was determined to get to that pivot point for him to shoot that shot and miss that shot or
Well,
lost the ball.
He knows how to use his body, probably some of the best in all of NBA.
Yeah, but he's coming back to the West.
Exactly.
And-
That's a big thing. Like one thing about the West is, if you look at it in the East, all you got to do is get to the finals. Like once you're in the finals, you hope that the West have beat up on each other, just like Golden State had happened to them when they met the Raptors last year. But the West is so much tougher. Ask LeBron James. Ask James Harden. Ask essentially every MVP the West has produced, except for Kevin Durant, albeit he had to join one of the greatest teams of all time in the Golden State Warriors. I mean, it's so tough to get that, and then he's all worried about his health
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. Trust me, night in, night out, he's not gonna have an easy game.
No, he's not. And if you think about it, he can't stagnate his time in the West, because if he takes too many days off, that could be what gets them from the number 1 seed to the 8th seed. So he might have to play the whole year, especially in this competitive West.
It's funny you brought that up, because last year when everybody was saying, well, when LeBron James he got injured, they were in 4th place. 4th to 8th place was basically 2 games.
2 games.
2 games, and that's so like you missing 17 games like you do. You can't do that in the West Coast. 17 games means that you're no longer in the playoffs.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? But luckily they have Paul George and stuff. We'll see how it plays out.
And
But
I'm going to give a little Laker love. Just a little bit. I do think out of all the duos, I think the easiest combination would probably be LeBron James and AD. Because I think AD is not egocentric, and I think that he's going to be able to conform to LeBron James's game, and I think it'll be an easier flow. I don't think that they have enough, maybe per se, the right talent. Like, I don't like Rondo on their team. I don't think he should be on that team. But at the same time, I just feel like LeBron James and AD will have a lot easier flow within each other. The only thing that I think is the biggest issue is, can they both stay healthy?
well, you remember how last year they went and got a whole bunch of playmakers?
Mm-hmm.
That's their issue now.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have any
They
playmakers.
don't have any playmakers.
Except for Rondo, who essentially is going to be coming off the bench, and LeBron James is going to be the playmaker. But you can't have LeBron James be the guy and play Kyrie Irving's role at the same time.
And
So-
I don't really like LeBron James playing point guard the whole year. I don't think that's even gonna last.
I don't think. I think
Especially-
eventually he's going to.
Especially when you play a team like the Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, where they're gonna be gunning for you. Like, you know that. Like, Denver and Utah have a lot to prove. Even Portland got better. So it's not like these teams are going to, oh, it's LeBron James, let's take it easy. Because you saw that this year they didn't take it easy. You know, and and that's that same sentiment can also be said to the Clippers. No one's gonna care if Kawhi Leonard's leg is hurting him.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Those are sharks, man.
Like I do see that the Clippers. LA, everybody's a new team essentially. All the good teams or all the better teams are gonna rise to the top. They're gonna go through a period of stagnation. They're gonna go through a growth pain. Even the Rockets, I can see it. What I will hear everybody that's doubted the Rockets next year come out. See, I told you, but trust me, just like the Rockets are gonna figure it out, like they always have. Even last year, they figured it out. Just like LeBron James takes him a certain amount of time to figure it out. Even the Clippers, they'll figure it out. But what I will say is, what team will take too long to figure it out? Because at some point, seeding and positioning will be important when it comes to the playoffs, because you have the top team and the bottom team come out. You don't want to play like we did too early last year. Rockets and the Golden State Warriors played in the second round. You don't want to do that again. So positioning will be important in the.
God,
in
what
the
if you
Western
finish?
Conference
So how many teams in the West? There's 8 seeds. How many of those teams win 50+ games?
Well, I think it's so Western Conference heavy, and I say that every year, expecting it to be more of a balance. But next year will be just as bad, or not even. To me, even worse. You got the Clippers, Lakers, Rockets. The Warriors are still in it. They're going to be they're right now. They're flying under the radar. I'm not saying that they'll.
I think that's the best thing that could happen to Golden State Warriors, in my opinion. Like everybody else, debate on who's the best team. Golden State Warriors. Yes, Klay Thompson's probably not coming back and they lost Durant, but they still have a great system.
Look, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Rockets, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Jazz, of course, all of those essentially got better, right? Even the Blazers, right? Then the Mavericks, they're going to be better just because of what's his name, Porzingis to come back. And then you got the Spurs, who are always a tough out,
always there,
every year. And then of course the Pelicans. I mean, the list goes on and on as far as like who I think you could essentially say after the Bucks and the Sixers, they're completely better than the East.
Also, too, a team that no one's talking about, and maybe I'm being a homer because of De'Aaron Fox, but the Kings have gotten a lot better. They got the youth movement over there, and they got a team that's a team that's scary, because that's a team that you let come into your arena and they beat you by 2 points because you didn't play them hard, and that's how you don't make the playoffs, or that's how you get an 8 seed. Like that, you can't lose to teams. Because here's the thing, even the Phoenix Suns are gonna be decent. No, trust me. Watch, the Phoenix Suns are gonna be. Do you think they're gonna lose? Those two teams I just mentioned could easily win 40 games and keep a team like the Rockets, because they've lost a couple of games to them, and move them down to the 6 or 7 spot. And now you're in the 7th spot having to play the Lakers.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like
that West is gonna be mean.
The West is gonna be horrible,
mean.
nasty.
And like that, like you said, teams like Sacramento is going to want to prove themselves. But did you hear first of all, Kevin Durant came out and said that he basically picked the Brooklyn Nets before he even had the meeting. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Now, do you hear why?
He liked their system a lot better.
Yeah, he said he liked the
system? To lose?
He said he liked the way they played. That they were always a tough out.
What? When was this? Quab, help me out. I know you follow Brooklyn Nets basketball.
I know totally.
I know you're a big fan. I know you're like the only fan other than Jay-Z. Tell me.
Yeah, he's such a fan, he got out.
Yeah, that's true. He just said, "Fuck this! I'm gonna go straight to be an agent." He sold his shares.
Yeah,
he can make more money that way.
I realize that, because you can't make money losing all the time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I gotta call bullshit. Listen, I'm all for players, and listening to them and believing what they say, but that one's a stretch to me, because you're essentially on the best team you've ever had, and you say another team you want to join them because their system.
Well, maybe because he's the only one who gets the ball. Maybe that's the system.
But he's never been a ball hawk. He's probably one of the most unselfish, best scoring players I've ever seen.
Who's the coach over at Brooklyn? I don't even pay attention to Brooklyn.
I want to say Kenny Atkins or something.
Listen,
like
the best thing that's ever happened to the Brooklyn Nets is when they actually paid tribute to Notorious B.I.G. and actually got that
They got a-
sweater into
yeah.
like the jersey, that's the dopest
That's
thing out
pretty
of
cool.
Brooklyn. Other than that, that team is horrible.
Kevin Durant knew where he wanted to go, and he knew it at the beginning of the season, if not like midway during the season at best. I just think his heart was already gone. Don't get me wrong, he played his heart out and gave everything he could to the Golden State Warriors, and that's all you can ask for any player. But he knew he was gone.
I think that's something no one's talking about. That's a very complicated and weird dynamic. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. They're such different personalities. And I'm honest, I'm gonna go this far. We can put some beer on it right now. There's gonna be complications there. And there's a possibility that in Kyrie Irving's career that he's gonna look back and realize the worst mistake he ever made was leave LeBron James. I'm gonna put some beer on that.
I don't.
Because LeBron
Like,
James
I'm not
is eccentric.
disagreeing with
I'm
you.
saying LeBron James is eccentric that he can deal with somebody as eccentric as Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I will say, for all the flack that he gets, he's already got Taco Tuesday with AD, incorporated. AD's over. They're all Rob Pelinka, LeBron James. They're on the phone trying to pick up players, and for everybody that believes that LeBron James doesn't have a say, or he's taking a step back, or he's not, trying to get a certain player here and there. Listen,
But LeBron James is a liar though, because he said he would give AD his jersey number 23, and it can't happen now.
why not?
Nike says it can't happen.
That's not true.
I look it up. You want to put some beer on this?
No.
He has to
So
take. He has
Nike
to.
says
He
it
can't wear the
happen?
number 6 because of I guess licensing, like how they licensed and put out the jerseys already en masse, because they already got the jerseys ready. So
So I was wondering about that
Yeah, he
because
can't-
he chose when they introduced him with this jersey, it was the number 3.
yeah, so he has to stick with number 3, and LeBron James is gonna have to stick with 23.
Hey, can you pull that up?
That's true.
Nike blocks LeBron James from giving Anthony Davis his number. Davis is to wear number 3.
And you would think LeBron James would have had so much pull because he's getting paid $1 billion by Nike. Obviously, this just proves that LeBron James is not the boss anymore. He can't even boss out Nike. He promised that man his jersey 23. That's horrible, LeBron James, man.
I wouldn't consider him a liar, but that's
He promised him. He said, "I'm gonna give you my jersey." They made a whole big deal about
They
it.
did, they did.
Now he has to take it back.
Wow.
I was gonna use the word Indian giver, but that's just not politically correct. Not in today's times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
They said Nike, they would have allowed it if Nike approved it, but they did not, citing a major financial loss
Yeah.
they would have incurred.
Like let's be real here. The greatest number of all
Major
time. Listen, if
financial
you're in
loss.
soccer, what jersey you want to wear?
9,
Okay. If you're a basketball player, what jersey you want to wear?
23.
Okay. Enough said. Who's the best player in the NBA? LeBron James.
Right.
Who is the greatest player of all time? Michael Jordan. What do they have in common? 23.
I just don't. I fail to see where they would ever take a loss. Maybe they might take a loss at the beginning because they have to redo all the jerseys and what are they gonna? They're gonna put all
To
the
me, how's that a loss? Because
Right.
if you would have bought LeBron's jersey, guess what? You would have already bought it.
right.
So if a new jersey comes out with new numbers, guess what? You buying it again.
Another-
Well, let me ask you a question.
Right.
You're buying
As a consumer,
80s
though.
jersey.
But as a consumer, what jersey would you want from LeBron James? The 23 or the 6?
If I would have wanted a LeBron jersey, I would have already got it by now.
That's
That's my
a good
point.
point. That's
You
a
know
good
what I
point,
mean?
Qual.
If I'm a true fan, I'm saying, what's really the difference between getting the jersey last year versus this year?
I'll give you an example. We can agree that Kobe Bryant is probably, and this is my
But if it
opinion.
worked for Kobe Bryant,
No.
why
But
can't
this,
it?
but this is what I'm trying to say. If you had a choice right now, where he's retired, to get a Kobe Bryant Lakers jersey in an 8 or the 24, which one are you going to go with?
24.
Really? Not the
I'm
8?
going 8.
Come on, man. 8's a classic.
Yeah,
This guy
but
came in the
24
league.
was. See, we can debate this all day.
Well, I mean,
8 was
that-
Shaq. and-
Kobe, that's a tough. That is a tough debate because I feel like there's no wrong answer.
I don't
Because he
think
was
Kobe
too
could decide between the two.
Yeah, because he was two different players that were both great, that have both two different eras.
Have you heard the thing where if you would have divided up their careers by just the numbers that he wore, they
Uh-huh.
would both make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like if it were two separate people.
That's why they both got retired. That's why they both got retired.
I'm not gonna lie. I was talking to one of my good friends today, and I told him that Michael Jordan's the best player ever, and I actually put Kobe Bryant as number 2. And I know that's probably very controversial, but when you go back and look how
it's just
when you go back and look how sick Kobe was, man, I think a lot of people really missed out on that greatness.
when the whole thing with James Harden and his scoring record and all that stuff was going down. Kobe Bryant's name came up so much more often than I ever would have thought. Like he had the most 40-point games straight in a row. It was
The
like,
stuff that you forgot about,
right.
Like, oh, Kobe did that?
Yeah,
Yeah, he did.
but see, like I said, if it worked for Kobe, why can't it work for LeBron James?
because people like
I just
Kobe
think,
a lot better.
I think they're just putting it out there.
Because I feel like based on what you guys said, Kobe did way more in 2 different jersey numbers than LeBron James has done in 2 different jersey numbers.
Bullshit.
I don't know. I mean, what do you remember the most about like LeBron James playing in 23?
Listen, Kobe Bryant's greatest achievement was winning the championship by himself. Well, essentially without Shaq. That's what I mean. And you can sit there and you can like see, he pulls his jersey to the side, shows his heart.
What number did he have when he scored 80 some points?
Was it 8? Was it 8?
I think it was 8.
I don't know. But I remember at some point he's like, let me reset. Let me start over. Forget the past and go on to the future of this 24.
I don't know. I think I would
Kobe
take an 8.
Bryant couldn't decide. Kobe Bryant couldn't decide. Both of the numbers in the rafters.
I don't know. He was good in both jerseys. I guess you're right, Kwal. We'll get them both. It's probably the only Lakers jersey I would ever wear is Kobe Bryant's.
So I got to move on from the NBA topics.
Thank God. I hate the NBA.
I had somebody come up and he said, y'all talk a lot about NBA.
We don't want to.
Y'all are y'all a basketball show? I'm like, really, we're not. We're actually just, Houston fans. And right now, NBA dominates. And that's what's moving the needle. That's what people want to hear us talk about. Now, we try to incorporate different things. And one of the things that I want to bring up today is the Houston Texans.
Thank God. I'm ready to talk. I've been waiting for this for a long time.
We don't talk about the Houston Texans enough. And granted, they're
Texans
on in the offseason right now. But let's start off a little light because I know we're gonna get into it a little bit. But you and me, we used to play Madden all the time. The Madden, we grew up Madden. He used to be good one year and I'd be good the next year. We go back and forth.
I've always been good. I've always been great.
Yeah, but I won tournaments. But I
have to.
Okay. You want to bet beer on that? Right.
If we put Bad on right now, I would destroy you.
Sounds like a game coming up. But anyways, we've been playing Madden for I don't know how long. And one of the things is we always look at the ratings. And there's 4 players that came out in Madden that got a 99, which is the max rating
unless you make your own player like I do and it's always a 99. Yeah, go ahead.
But the Texans' own DeAndre Hopkins has made the famous list of a 99 ranked player in the game. Now, if you think about all the wide receivers,
I like it.
Is DeAndre Hopkins the best wide receiver in the NFL right now?
I think that even today, I think Hopkins is always the most underrated and most underappreciated wide receiver. Because when we talk about wide receivers, the first 2 that come up to people's mind is either Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, and Antonio Brown, right? Those are the 3. But the person who's been the most consistent and is universal, like just he can catch the ball, he can go up and get the ball, he has speed, he can run routes, he can go and get the deep ball. Like it's Hopkins. I mean, he's to me one of those wide receivers that I don't think is ever mentioned in the top 3 when he should be.
He's not spectacular unless it's a catch. What I mean by that is like you don't see him breaking away. You don't see him have these like 90, 80-yard runs and just, blows people away. He doesn't have that breakaway speed, what it looks like. But if it's in his radius, he's catching the ball.
He goes in and gets balls. And let's be real here. The numbers he's put up the last couple of years with shitty ass quarterbacks is a tell of how talented he is.
I think he's had double-digit touchdowns in the past 5 seasons and with 4 different quarterbacks.
What's that say? That's somebody who regardless, you know how many wide receivers give up and complain and bitch because Antonio Brown, a good example. At least he had a decent quarterback, right? I know he's coming of age, Roethlisberger, right? Like Hopkins never stopped. I mean, whoever the quarterback was, he went out there and he played his game and he played hard. And you have to love that. That's why I said I think Hopkins, because he's not flashy, because that's the thing that in today's sports world is that we're attracted to the flash. It kind of reminds you of Andre Johnson. But in hindsight, though, I keep using the word hindsight. I apologize. Hopkins, to me, is definitely a lot more flashier than Andre Johnson.
I remember calling it in like year 3. DeAndre Hopkins was already a better player than Andre Johnson. No slight to him. Andre Johnson's the greatest wide receiver in Texans history up until DeAndre Hopkins. But DeAndre Hopkins, what he's been able to do with whoever it was throwing it to him has been some of the best football I've seen at the wide receiver position. But does that make him better than Antonio Brown?
I think so, because you have to listen. You also have to listen. I am a big Antonio Brown fan, especially now he's playing for the Raiders. I can't wait to watch Hard Knocks. I can't wait to see that whole dynamic. But the problem with Antonio Brown is that his own mind, his own ego gets him in a lot of trouble. And we've debated a lot of great receivers. You were a T.O. fan, and what would I always tell you? T.O. is a great player, but his ego just gets in the way of what matters the most. The one thing you haven't seen, as crappy as the Texans have been the last couple of years, horrible QBs, just underachieving overall, he's always consistent.
Yeah.
He has a great attitude.
And he's always healthy.
He's always healthy. He takes care of himself.
People, yeah.
He's respected in the community. He's not over there having just like, he's not.
Shout out to the Honey Badger, man, because I think Deshaun Watson got like an 82, and the Honey Badger's like, whoever decided that Deshaun Watson gets an 82 needs to be fired today.
I concur on that. I can't believe he got that low. Like that's ridiculous. I mean, he did beat out.
There's a lot of people that got kind of upset.
Tell me he at least beat out Eli Manning.
All right. No.
Why is he still quarterback?
That's the thing though. When it comes to Odell Beckham Jr. too, like it mattered who was throwing him the ball, and it seemed like Odell Beckham Jr. had a down year for whatever reason, but. You don't see that with DeAndre Hopkins. Year in and year out, it's pretty much, 10 touchdowns plus, 1,000 yards receiving with like 80 catches. Something ridiculous.
I mean,
or 100.
If we're gonna really measure the stick of how good receivers are, Julio Jones to me, Alabama, Roll Tide Roll, is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And he has a decent quarterback, what most would perceive to be a decent quarterback. And he can't even get the ball to Julio Jones. So that's what I'm saying. Hopkins has had shitty quarterbacks and still found a way to go get that ball. Maybe there wasn't other talent and that, those quarterbacks, we won't mention their names, but they had no other choice because that's who they could throw the ball to. But not at any point did Hopkins ever quit. And that's why I said I think it's honestly probably the most respected Hopkins has gotten a long time to get a 99.
That's pretty cool. Like I think at the end of the day, it could be just recognition for what he's done, and that's pretty. I mean, that's.
Let's just hope that the Madden curse doesn't exist. I don't want him getting cursed this 99. Good Lord.
Now, let's stick with the Texans. One, they have foregone getting a GM, and I'll say this: for Bill O'Brien, this is. What you've always like you brought up something on the IG where you said it could be the worst thing that could ever happen or it could be the best thing that ever happened. Bill O'Brien is essentially Bill Belichick right now for the Texans.
Good Lord, we're in trouble.
He is going to, and he is making moves without basically any checks or balances. This is his team Yes, he has a committee around him, and they're all doing their part. But this is essentially his team, and he's running it the way he wants to run it. If he's head coach, you know. And one of the biggest things that's happening right now, is they franchise tag Jadeveon Clowney. Now, you can do it for a linebacker or a defensive end. But at this point, depending on what you designate him, the tag for, the linebacker actually makes more money than a defensive end or vice versa. Either way, the Texans chose where he would make less money.
Of course.
And it's like $1.7 million less to play for the Texans.
What did I tell you? I told you, wait, before we started even doing podcasts together, that Jadeveon Clowney's not going to play this year. After this, I wouldn't play. And you know what somebody said? Well, like, he can get penalized or he can get money taken away from him. Who's the GM? Who's taking his paychecks? Here's the problem that I have with the Texans in this whole situation, is that you knew from the start that you didn't want to pay Jadeveon Clowney the money he deserved. So this is why not having a GM or having whoever the hell is running this shitty team, why it's important to have people that know what they're doing, because you could have easily traded him and got a third, fourth round picks. We need picks. We need to help our depth across the board. And if you're not going to keep him, why even put him through this? So you've already told him that.
I think that it's just like a big fuck you. Like, you want to hold out? All right, we're going to give you the least amount of money. And it's just a 1.7, right? And it's not something that is an insurmountable amount. It's just, we'll let you know that this is our team, and you're not going to strong arm us.
We'll see what happens with that, because if they don't have a defensive line, it's going to be a long season, especially with that secondary.
You know what's scary to me, and I don't like doing this too much as far as, like, I don't like when players can hold teams hostage, but this is a perfect example when other players are going to see this.
Oh, absolutely.
Other players are going to look like, oh, well, they shorted him. When it comes to my situation, when it comes to my contract negotiations, what's to say they won't do the same thing with me? And it really will, in my thinking, as say if I were an agent or anything, you look back at these types of examples to see how this team's run. And do you really want to be a part of a team that's just going to be, in my opinion, just take something personal? They're going out of their way, in my opinion, to pay somebody less. When not only do I don't want that contract, but the contract I want, which is a longer term contract, is not only you not giving me that, but you're gonna kind of like shove shit in my face and tell me I'm not even worth this.
So I'm saying Clowney's not playing this year, and that to me, with not having a GM, is really going to be a tell-all in the locker room. Because if I'm JJ Watt and I'm looking at this, there's a big chance that this year the Texans are going to go 6-10. I'm calling they're going 6-10, if they're lucky. If you're JJ Watt and you're seeing the way they're handling other players that can make your job easier, right? And you're on a losing team, are you going to want to stay with this team? Because we can honestly say that J.J. Watt's getting closer. His best years are behind him. And he doesn't deserve to play on a team that's mediocre, a team that's dysfunctional, a person who thinks that he's Bill Belichick when he's nowhere near it. If you're Hopkins, you take your 99 somewhere else. You're hoping you get traded on Madden, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trade it. I'm going to trade for Hopkins on another team that I want him to be on. But anyways, the point being is that the Texans don't have a clue, but they're trying to sell it to the fans that they got everything under control.
I wonder why they don't like more. I haven't heard more like anger from the Houston Texans fans. Maybe because, like I said, it's in the offseason and stuff. But this is something that I think would bother the regular Houston Texan fan.
I think that because this is such a football heavy city, we love our football, that we're willing to deal with mediocre. And that's the sad thing about this is that when you look at the Houston Astros and you look at the Rockets, they're always trying to do something to get better.
Right.
The Texans are sitting on $80 million right now they could have spent on free agency, right? They could have easily gone out there and got better protection for Deshaun Watson, who we can all easily say is a true franchise quarterback and a game changer, right? They didn't do that. They got a first-round pick that could have easily gone a third-round pick. So
that still needs to be played out, but
I hope that it hurt because I don't want Deshaun Watson to get hurt. You know, I love what he brings to the game, and he's only going to get better. But he's not going to get better if he's constantly getting sacked like he did last year.
Right.
And he's definitely not going to get better if Bill O'Brien brings the same played out play calling he did last year.
Well, we'll see, but I find it a little disappointing, to be honest. Somebody that's looking from the outside looking in, somebody that I don't care whether, to be honest, it's not so much that I care about Jadeveon Clowney, whether or not he gets a long-term contract, but just seeing how they've treated him and handled this situation, I feel like that's a kind of a slap in the face to not just to Jadeveon Clowney, but to players themselves. And the NFL Players Association is going to file a grievance, and
Rightfully so.
I don't know. You ask somebody to play a position for the betterment of a team, but when it comes to you actually paying the dollars for you showing the same type of loyalty that the player has showed you, and you do the exact opposite, I think that says a lot. I think that's like I said, a slap in the face.
And just to end this, I was listening to somebody today on the radio saying that, well, if somebody really wanted to trade for Jadeveon Clowney, then they probably would have made offers to the Texans. So obviously nobody wants Jadeveon Clowney.
What?
This is what some of you are saying, and here's my perspective on that. There's not one team in the NFL that wouldn't take Jadeveon Clowney because they know that he has potential to help their defensive line. Maybe he may not get paid as much money as he wants, but for me, if I'm Jadeveon Clowney, I would rather be on any other team than the Houston Texans because the Houston Texans already proved that they don't want you. And why even play your heart out for a team that already showed you that they don't want you? You know what I mean? So at this,
remember what I was telling you about Le'Veon Bell?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most powerful plays any player could do. And it's either going to be 100% a success or 100% a failure. And from up until this point, so far, it's been a success. But he hasn't played. But if more players do what Le'Veon Bell did, i.e. Jadeveon Clowney, like you said, he's going to sit out, right? If more players do that, the balance of power is going to start to swing. And, you know, the leverage that players have in the NFL is notoriously low.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, you have more players like Jadeveon Clowney and Le'Veon Bell and I can't remember the offensive line Texan, Dwayne Brown, excuse me. They hold out entire seasons or mid seasons. How long it takes for
even
them to
Andre
get
Johnson
traded.
held out too. I mean, they've actually had a lot of issues with not paying their players. This is the year you don't do that because if you look at that Texan schedule, and we're gonna get into it eventually, they're playing a lot of elite offenses, and that's gonna be the topic.
Man, there's a lot of I hear that the Colts are building up.
It's my Super Bowl favorite. Listen, they right now are looking at elite offensive teams to play, and you know if they start going on those first 4 or 5 games that the Texans have to play, those could easily be losses. If they start losing, what's going to be the first thing the media is going to ask Bill O'Brien? Where's Jadeveon Clowney? Why isn't he playing?
Right.
Why didn't you guys make this happen?
But when Dwayne Brown was holding out, they didn't do that.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
His offensive line not as glamorous.
It's definitely not as glamorous. But Jadeveon Clowney is a freak of nature. You know what I mean? Like he does change the way that you have to actually prepare your offense. Him and JJ Watt are two players that you
Yeah,
have to be
but
very careful with.
fans don't. They see J.J. Watt and they want Jadeveon to be the same way, and he's not. He's not built like
He's
that.
not built like that. But I mean, that doesn't mean that Jadeveon Clowney doesn't have
Value.
and
Right.
doesn't bring something to the table. Because guess what? Without Jadeveon Clowney, let's see how many sacks that JJ Watt gets this year.
I don't know.
5 sacks.
All right. Well, that being said, I think we need to introduce a segment off the dome.
What's up, Qual? You've been quiet, man. What's going on,
A little
man?
quiet today.
What's going
bro.
on over there?
I'm just letting y'all talk, dude.
Oh, you letting us talk? I thought you part of the show too, man.
Nah, I'm all right.
Man.
All right, so this is part of the segment where we get a couple of quick hits, quick takes. Sometimes it runs a little longer than normal or that we want, but you know we're trying to keep it a little light today. What's up, Qual? What you got for us? First thing off the top of the dome.
All right, stick with the NFL. What do you think about the proposal to turn the season into 18 games long?
So how's your reaction? Well, you know, there's so many problems with that. It's just okay. So, does that extra 2 games? Does the NFL get revenue? First of all, the details are extra 2 games. You take away 2 of the preseason games, right? And then the players can only play 16 games, right? Okay. So the extra revenue generated for those extra 2 games, what happens? And then at the end of the season, say you're in a playoff hunt for positioning or number 1, 2, 3, whatever seeding that you need, and you need Tom Brady or Deshaun Watson to play week 17, but week 16 he played all 16 games already. What's gonna happen? You know, like all those, and then the players are already talking about. Oh, so the extra 2 revenue, games of revenue. You know, are we getting compensated for that? How is that gonna be broken up? And man, that's
How the fuck does this help player safety at all?
oh yeah. Well, it's keeping it 16 games.
No, the whole point of trying to change this ideally was supposed to be to help with player safety. So explain to me how the fuck this helps with player safety. You're adding 2 more games and saying, "Oh, but you get 2 days off."
But they do it anyways. They do it in a bye.
Listen, the stupidest thing that we can all agree on is that the preseason is horrible. You want to know why the
Right.
preseason game's horrible? This is what the NFL is really trying to trick us and try to get us to understand. They know that the NFL loses money when it comes to preseason. You want to know why? Because when you get those preseason tickets half price and they're still really expensive.
No, they're full price.
Okay, so when you see, they used to be
Half price?
Half-
No, they
well,
probably get sold at half price.
what I'm
half
saying-
face value.
but so you're going and watching preseason games with players you don't even know who they are.
Right.
And you're probably never going to see again.
No.
Right? So the NFL is like, okay, how about player safety? We'll add 2 games that are legit, but you get 2 days off. It does not help the NFL. And honestly, I think this just makes the NFL look even worse than what they already do.
I'll play devil's advocate. And the only bright side I see of this is at least they're starting the conversation of what to do with preseason. Because like you said, we can all agree that preseason sucks.
Quagga, when's the last time you watched a preseason game?
Nope.
See? This is what I'm saying.
All right. What?
Well, I was going to say, well, I mean, at least A.J. McCarron gets to start 2 games if this was to happen.
Hey.
Roll Tide, roll.
All right, Carl.
Staying with the NFL, I think they also trying to implement PI reviews after that whole debacle of Saints and Rams
See, I
last year.
I like it. I like it. And here's why.
I'm down with it.
Here's why. They're heading into the right direction. There was the wrong direction is to stay the way they are. Is to not admit that there's a problem that needs to be at least addressed, and they're addressing it. Now, they'll fix it up and they'll adjust where it needs to be adjusted, but you can't do it within the 2 minutes of at the end of the game. That has to go up to the review booth. But still, I mean, it's when at least at the end of the 2 minutes they can still look at it. It doesn't have to be called by a coach. A coach can call, just like in regular football, they can still call the play, but once it gets to the 2-minute warning, then an NFL has to look at it. And at the end of the day, I just want the NFL to look at it because I'm sure the Saints would wanted the NFL to look at it when that happened versus the Rams.
That would have been much better Super Bowl. God damn it.
The Saints probably would have won. Okay, what I want to know, I agree with both of you guys. It needs to happen. It needs to happen consistently. And I also think they need to change it from it being, a bit available under 2 minutes because that's when things really happen. Sometimes you need to watch the camera. But what I want to know is, are we going to start penalizing referees that miss those type of calls? Because I've always wanted that to happen. Because if you go back and look at that play in New Orleans Saints, the referee was right there.
But still, in when you and I keep saying this because it's true. When you look at it in a replay, it happens so slowly. Like you have time to think, and your eyes are okay. You're judging and you're seeing the play unfold in a slow pace.
John,
when
he got hit before the ball even came near him,
right?
And then the ball fell to the referee's feet after the man's over there knocked out. Like that's just.
Here's the thing, but if you make the call,
sorry, Saints, man,
if
that's
you make
terrible.
the call,
terrible,
and you don't look, if you make the call, and you don't, and you throw the flag, that no longer is reviewable. But you've changed the outcome of the game immediately.
But that play was not reviewable either way.
Right? No, it's not. But when in that situation, Saints still have a chance to go down and throw the ball again, or it just went into overtime.
That's not the point.
That's not
no,
the
I'm
point.
not saying it. No.
Point.
But if he would have made that call, it would have completely changed the outcome of the game.
Which should have
decided the game.
And guess what? They would have scored.
But what if you get it wrong and you decided the game? He doesn't know. My
okay,
point is he did
first
not
of all,
know.
John, at this point, there was nothing to get wrong there. He was clearly pass interference.
Well, now we know this, but in the moment,
We knew right in the you knew watching it.
You're lying, John. I watched a game and the first thing came to my mouth is, how the fuck did they miss that?
Listen, because y'all both were rooting for the Saints. You wanted the Saints to root.
No, I like both teams, the Rams and the Saints.
No, you wanted the Saints to win. I remember I asked you your pick. That's what your pick was.
I said no. I said I was going with the Saints because I felt like they were better offensively, but I like the Rams.
I'm not debating it.
It's one of my favorite teams.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying.
No.
You guys were looking at it through filtered lenses.
No, but that's not why. Because if that play would have flip flopped and that would have happened to the Rams, I would have thought the same thing. Because it should have been reviewed because it should have been reviewed fairly.
Same here.
No. A rule is a rule. You don't call it one way just because you want your team to go. That's not how I'm thinking. Hell no.
John, you have the San Francisco 49ers. Every year, I kind of float around with my teams. I've been doing that since the Oilers left. I don't really have a set favorite team. Of course, I'm always going to cheer for the Texans because they're from Houston. But my favorite teams vary. You know that. And there's certain players. I can say that when it comes to NFL, I am more player heavy because there's certain players that appeal to me, that I like the work ethic, and then I'll follow those teams, especially if they're good defensive teams. I like those teams, right? Like this year, one of my favorite teams is going to be the Ravens. I think they have one of the best defenses, and I think they're going to be a game changer. And I'm also rooting for the Cleveland Browns, right? I'm just telling you the truth.
Okay.
You know why I'm not a Saints fan? Because every time I want to be a Saints fan, the Saints fans ruin that. All right? That stupid, what they say? Who that? My goodness.
All right. So I think we both agree that they need to look at it. And I'm not saying the system's perfect.
Saints should have won a Super Bowl.
Anyways, I'm not gonna go down that road, but
they would have been they would have been able to score on the Patriots.
Drew Brees has a ring. Be happy with that, Saints fans. But at the end of the day, it was, and it still is, Tom Brady with number 6 on his finger. So we'll leave it at that. Qual, what's next, baby?
Real quick, I want to backtrack and look at hindsight because last week I want to say we forgot to give a little shout out to the U.S. Women's National Team for taking home the World Cup.
That's true. We talked about that. Yep.
This also just passed up this past weekend. I think was the ESPYs, and then they won Best Team Award was the U.S. Women's National Team, and then what was it? Alex Morgan won Best Female Athlete. So I want to give a shout out to them. So I don't know if you have anything to say, but I just figured at least worth a mention. Did y'all watch ESPYs?
Some of it. I watched highlights of it. It's just
I'm gonna tell you who I thought should have won Woman Athlete of the Year.
Who?
Nunez.
Oh, yeah.
Not to take away from Morgan. I just feel like you're just riding the. Listen, what the U.S. women's soccer team did was amazing.
Right.
Especially their fourth World Cup, something the men have never done. So I feel like there's like a lot of hype with that. And yes, Morgan, she's a great athlete, but Nunez, man, I'm just saying, like she needs a lot more love.
Yeah, no, she 100%. She's the greatest female fighter of all time. But as far as the women's national team, one of the big things that came up was the pay. Yeah, equal pay. And I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but the facts that were given to me was the biggest argument is that the FIFA World Cup for the women's isn't as big, doesn't have as much viewership, and they don't get as much revenue. Well, apparently they do get an equal viewership, and they do have just as much revenue. And for the men's that got kicked out of the round 16 or something like that, they won like $4 million, I guess, as a team or something like that. And then the women that won the World Cup was like 1.6. So I don't know exactly if those numbers are true, but if those are the numbers that the women are looking at, they 100% they have an argument. And then just
I don't even think it should be equal pay. I think the women should get paid more than the men.
Especially if they
it's
win.
like that whole debate when people were kind of like hawking on, what was it, Adam Silver in the NBA about like how much money or whatever that they invest into the WNBA and they should be doing more and about their pay and all that. And I mean, I don't know. I remember hearing his like rebuttal and his response to it, and I thought it was actually very fair that he tries to do as much as they can for the WNBA, but at the end of the day, they're separate entities. And I don't know. It's just like, yeah, people don't come out to watch WNBA games. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people that are rallying, especially like women, is very hypocritical because those women aren't showing up to watch WNBA games. So it's like that's
because they don't know how to market. And if they would market it the way it should be marketed, I think the WNBA would actually be a lot more appealing. Listen. And I've read this.
They started out really well as far as marketing.
This is the reason why I'm saying that is that
because the Comets are winning.
Well, what I'm saying is that you do have a lot of women that play in WNBA who are lesbians.
Right.
And I think that this is the best time ever to appeal and market to that community, and they don't do that at the NBA. They don't. The WNBA does not.
They want it to keep it universal. They don't want to market
that.
to it.
You're not going to use that to market.
Listen. You don't have to put rainbows on everything. What I'm saying is that you need to know who your target audience is, because a good portion of gay women do watch the WNBA.
No, I disagree, and I'm gonna tell you why.
You sure about that?
Yes, because in the NBA they embrace hip hop. They don't market hip hop. You get what I'm saying? Their target audience isn't the urban America 20 to 25 years old. Their target audience is somebody that can afford.
So when's the last time the WNBA actually catered to what you're saying to the gay community?
No, I've never seen them do
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
But that's my point. They don't. You're trying to say that they need to target them.
What is it?
They're doing is keeping it universal.
But that's just it. The universal aspect
John,
of it is not working. You don't think
it'll help? You don't think it'll do anything if they do what Chris is saying?
I think that in this moment in time, we're not ready. Well, if we were to be ready socially, in my opinion, yes, it'd be a good idea, because you do there's certain marketing of certain demographics that you should market to, but when we're so divisive in our community, in our social landscape, excuse me, and even in our politics, it's like if I were to market to the gay and lesbian community, then I'm alienating a lot of my my investors, the people that do come in who are family friendly, who are the
So you can't be gay and be family friendly? That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Because there's this is why I think that's flawed thinking. Because in the NBA, every year for Black History, they celebrate Black History,
right,
and they celebrate. You see all the different shoes that come out for equality, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people that watch the NBA that don't like that.
Okay.
But that appeals to the minorities in a way that's unique and different. They're the only ones that do that, the NBA. So you could easily do that same thing. And for all marketing purposes, Pride Month is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger every year. This year alone in Pride Month, I walked in almost every store, including Old Navy, and there was Pride merchandise everywhere. Because it's not just being celebrated by that community in itself. It's actually being celebrated universal. Because when you go to a Pride parade, there's people who are heterosexual, who are married, out there with their friends celebrating. So it is definitely an easy market to celebrate and to push.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't necessarily think that the world is ready in that aspect, that demographic.
Unfortunately, I probably have to agree with that. And like the whole argument, or when you bring up the point with like Black History and the NBA thing, like NBA's got a lot of leverage because look at the demographic already. They've already got their followers and their support, and people watch no matter what.
Right.
WNBA doesn't have that yet. They're coming from a standpoint where they're trying to still build that following. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I, believe it's wrong to promote it like that, because I'm right there 100% with you. But I think John's right. Like people just aren't ready. I don't know what the correct way is, but it's gonna turn political if you do it that way, because then it's gonna put the image of like this is what it's all about. So now you're gonna have backlash, probably even from players within the WNBA that are straight and be like, like why is this now? Oh, now this is just turning into a gay organization. Like what? Like
see, that's the one thing I worry about. Like, will the backlash be? Oh, is this a jump off for the gay and lesbian community? And it's not supposed to be that way. It's not. I don't think that organization should have that stigma or label on them. Stigma is a bad word, but a label saying that this is the gay and lesbian league, or basically, and that's the thing I worry about. But I do think that there does need to be, just like he brought up Black History Month, it may not necessarily be a month, but there does need to be a recognition of that demographic for there.
That's what I'm saying. You can actually go and promote that community without making a gay league, right? And I get what you're saying, but also too, how many players in the NBA who are gay can never come out and being gay because it's considered a straight league,
right?
And these players have to live in silence, and I think that's unfair. You know what I mean? So you can't have one without the other. And if we're going to talk about true equality, if we're really going to look back at what equality means, that means equality for all, and maybe you're right. Maybe the NBA could take the next steps. They've already taken the NBA around the world the way soccer has, right? Maybe they could take it to a next level where they're actually showing love to everyone. And it doesn't have to feel like you have to be a certain way or have to hide who you are in order to be in this league.
Right.
WNBA or NBA.
Whatever happened to homeboy that got drafted in the NFL? That was like the first.
Did he even?
He never
played for a game.
As soon as he came out, and he was actually pretty talented. In the fact that this is what happens, and I think that I don't know the statistics are
what
legit.
needs to happen, and I think that one of the things that the players need to take of. It's hard. I can't decide for anybody's life, but one thing I will say about Lil Nas is Lil Nas X. He came out after the hit. It's so hard, and I can't wait to see what else he does next because he still has a whole album to come out with and all this stuff. But one of the good things about that is he hit with a song that everybody resonated.
Yep.
It was played on every album. Every radio station, all the outlets and everything.
Yeah.
It was bang, bang, bang. It still hits, right? But then he came out in the middle of all that, and so the backlash wasn't as strong as opposed to if he would have come out before. Because there's been other gay rappers. If he would have come out before, then put the song, nobody's gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
So I think at some point there has to be a major player, a major figure in the NFL, NBA, or even baseball to come out and say he's gay.
I can't wait. I can't wait to win one of the best or most dominant players in any major sports comes out and say they're gay, because it would change how we all view sports. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter who you lay in bed with. It should matter how hard your talent,
right.
And that's But there's a lot of, and you mentioned that NFL player, he was pretty much cast out right away,
right.
And that's unfortunate and really sad.
Yeah. Well, dude. I really, really like this topic. I wish we could elaborate a little bit
Michael
more. But
Sam, there you go.
Yep.
It's going to be something to watch, and like I said, it's going to take a major figure in sports, maybe like an MVP or big time All-Star in one of those sectors. Then because it's acceptable in women's sports, but it hasn't got to that point in men's sports. So
not at all.
Once that happens, you'll see. I want to see how the public reacts, and right now, I don't necessarily think the public would react really good. But once the divisiveness of this country goes away, I think that would be a lot more accepting. But
yeah, man. I think just to wrap it all up, I hope that someday we will get to, in our generation, in our lifetime, that we'll get to a point where this won't even be an issue. Honestly, it's stupid.
It really is.
But yeah, I think the only way that I see it really going about it is someone has to be of that like superstar caliber, and it's almost like the success, whatever, already has to have been there. But if you're trying to build it, that's almost like a deterrent.
right,
It shouldn't
exactly.
be. It shouldn't be 100, 1,000%. But it's like, would you care that Nunes was gay or not if she hadn't won all those? If she wasn't the best fighter, right? Would you care about take Chick-fil-A, for example? Look at the backlash. I don't agree with the whole anti-LGBT stance that they have, but guess what? They're like one of the biggest fast food chains of all time. People, they already had that following, and it's like, yeah, you could say against their policy, but guess what? Those people still eating chicken sandwiches.
Yeah,
it's like you already have had to have built that.
Yeah,
and then slowly, like when those issues arise, it'll bring people's attention to it. But let's say something like the WNBA, who they're still trying to get that audience, get that revenue, and if you use that as your forefront to your marketing, it may hurt more than it'll help. Not that I agree with that, but
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of gave up on Chick-fil-A when that whole stance came out, but then they brought the spicy chicken sandwich.
Of all,
and I was back.
You know what you need to try? I just had it today too. The spicy chicken sandwich, or they have a regular one too from Popeyes.
Oh yeah,
bro, it's pretty new, I think, but
they love everyone there.
Yeah,
they love everyone there.
From Louisiana.
I might have to
do.
I might have to switch.
Did y'all see the KFC Cheetos burger?
No.
Oh my god,
That's a what?
I haven't had KFC in like 10 years.
So there's a KFC burger with Cheetos, like the Cheetos and the cheese sauce and everything in the KFC sandwich.
Well, that's actually kind of common because a lot of people actually will crunch up like spicy Cheetos and use it as bread.
That's been the food. What do you call it? The food trend for the past 2 years.
They just caught on. Stupid KFC. Let's go Popeyes.
All right. So moving on.
That was a good topic.
We'll talk about football, but world football.
Football.
So Neymar wants to go back to Barcelona, FC Barca, after only 1 year of PSG. After signing the biggest sports contract in history? What?
Let me ask you, Chris. If that were like you said, Neymar signs the biggest contract. The very next year he says,
"Hold on, you're talking to a Man United fan, apparently." So,
yeah, I don't.
I'm actually so he knows I'm a big Neymar fan,
Huge Neymar fan.
and so, but I love all soccer jerseys. I don't care who they are. I just think soccer jerseys are awesome. So, just want that to be on record.
Okay,
I
so
don't have a real favorite team.
Neymar joins the PSG, Paris Saint-Germain football club, and he signs the biggest contract of all time. The very next year, he says, "I want to go back to my team." Name a player in this era that if he were to do something like that after signing a big contract, saying he wants to not just go to any team, his old team that he joined from, who would not be just completely denigrated, completely thrown under the bus and chastised for doing something?
Is he not?
Who?
Neymar.
No.
Not at all.
I have not seen anybody.
Because I mean, he's actually one of probably the most hated players in all of soccer.
No, but for various reasons.
Well, I'm listen.
And this is not helping him.
Well, I think Neymar realized, and I actually think maybe there's some maturity that he thought he could go out and be his own superstar, and things are a lot harder when you have to do it all on your own. And he left a great team. He left a damn good team, and he actually had his best years playing next to Messi. So, and all the other surrounding players. I mean, they have just they just have a great team. So, and he actually looks better in those colors too. So, I'm just
Actually, PSG got some.
No, they do
colors,
because they got the Jordan jerseys came in. That's pretty awesome. But like, man, you know what though?
So you don't have a problem with it?
I mean, I've accepted LeBron and Kawhi Leonard and everybody else gets to pick what team they want to go.
I think it's what it is, man. I think he got his inspiration from watching the NBA.
Probably so. He hangs out with all the NBA players.
You know what? I've been doing my own damn self.
Who was he just hanging out with? Jimmy Butler. Who was he hanging out with before? James Harden.
Yeah.
So I mean, and if there's anybody that has that hip hop flavor, that's Neymar. He's been that young, appealing kid. Like
Neymar might sign to the Heat tomorrow.
He might. Shoot, he might come to the Dynamo. Let's go, Neymar.
222 million euros to just release him out the contract. The most expensive transfer ever.
So are they gonna actually do it? I heard that Barcelona was kind of holding up.
No.
It's official.
Neymar has come out and says he no longer wants to play for them, and he wants to go back to Barcelona. Now Barcelona is up to them to give back those 222 million.
Oh,
euros.
Barcelona is gonna tell him, "Fuck you! You should have never left." He's fucked.
Hey, listen, it's the times. It really is, and like you said, getting the players with Jimmy Butler, you kind of decide your future, but he decided it last year. That's what he wanted, and if he doesn't, here's my thing. I've always told you, and now it seems like contracts don't mean anything, but a contract is a contract, and you signed it. Nobody forced you to do this, and you decided that
Poverty forced me to sign it.
Yeah, well, but for all intents and purposes, he made that conscious decision to leave. So he left. Now he's regretting it.
Why can't he do that? I think, what I honestly think, truth be told, all of us can agree. You know why it might bother us or bother other people? Because we don't have that ability to do that.
I don't care. I want you to do it.
No, what I'm saying is like human beings that are going to criticize this move are the same human beings that wish that they had this much power where they can just switch their jobs. Like, you know what? I don't want to work here anymore. I don't want to work here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to work for this podcast anymore. I want to work for ESPN. What if I said that, John? ESPN, call me.
I would say no. You made your decision. You
Damn
signed
it.
the contract.
There's a contract? Shit. I'm fucking finding this out now.
We got anything else? Mr. Wow.
I just want to shout out to Wimbledon. Also just ended this past weekend.
Speak your truth.
Serena Williams got dethroned in the final by Miss Simona Halep. Straight sets too. I think it was like 6-2, 6-3, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
she lost single-handedly.
So that's gonna be her second Grand Slam after winning. I think it was U.S. Open
you see that reporter
last year?
Reporter asked her, don't know. She brought up a Billie King.
Yeah,
quote,
yeah.
Something like maybe she should stop worrying about equality or fighting for whatever.
Yeah, and then just focus on tennis.
And
She said that?
Oh yeah,
The reporter
said that.
Let me. No.
Don't
Billie
pull it
King,
out. I'm gonna be so mad.
who is an old tennis player.
Yeah. I know Billie
I think
King.
she's the one that beat the guy in the Battle of the Sexes.
Billie Jean King, yeah.
Billie Jean King. There we go.
Wait. She said that was her?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just a random reporter.
No, she quoted Billie Jean King. That's the thing. And
okay. So Billie Jean, she said this, and the reporter said it to her.
yeah, no, she said, "What do you think about what Billie Jean King said?" And okay, so
Serena's response was
listen,
great.
This is her direct quote. She's got a baby. She's trying to help gender equality, particularly women of color, which makes it much harder. 12 times Grand Slam I would like her to put everything else aside and just everything else aside because she's got other people working those things. I wish she would just make a commitment for the next year and a half or 2 years and say, I'm absolutely going to focus on what's necessary for my tennis. So when I look in the mirror, when I'm older, then I can go in the back of my mind and know I gave it everything I had. That's a direct quote from Billie Jean King. Now, Serena says, do you know anything about this?
No, it's new to me.
Serena says,
why didn't you tell me about this?
Serena says, the day I stop fighting for equality is the day I'll be in my grave.
Boom.
It's pretty gangster.
That's the perfect thing
that
to say.
was awesome.
Take that, Billie Jean. Not my girl. That's all I got to say about that.
So she was trying to match the all-time record of 24 Grand Slams.
You know, honestly, what's so sad about this is that you would think that Billie Jean would be supportive of her. I can only imagine how hard it was for Billie Jean and her time period to get respect that she truly deserved as a woman tennis player. And at her point, I remember reading this in Sports Illustrated, she was pretty dominant, right? I didn't watch that type of tennis back in those days, but I'm saying this is where women have to definitely stand up for other women, right? And that's just, to me, just not a place. And maybe, just maybe, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
It's the perfect thing because this is. I'm maybe I messed it up a little bit. The day I stopped fighting for equality and for the people that look like you and me, and she literally points and says to the reporter, who I'm guessing is a reporter, a person of color, will be the day I'm in my grave. And King came back and she says, I would never ask anybody to stop fighting for equality. And everything she does, Serena shines a light on what all of us must fight for in order to achieve equality for all.
You think Billie Jean, you think that maybe, just maybe, she's actually cheering for Serena and she just wants her to be dominant and break all these records?
I think that's exactly
I just think it just came out incorrectly. And of course, the national media is just jumping on all that.
But that's good. That's a perfect response.
Yeah. It was worded so poorly. How can you tell someone that? It doesn't matter.
She's 75 years old, right?
Yeah, she's 75.
Okay, so let's kind of keep that in hindsight. She's older now. And I think that maybe, I'm just giving her benefit of the doubt, playing devil's advocate, maybe, just maybe, she just totally said it incorrectly.
It's just, to me, it's a very ignorant statement.
Probably didn't need to be said at all.
And it's you probably had good intentions, but that's so ignorant the way that you brought that up, especially in the time that we're in or whatever. How can you tell somebody to not fight for equality?
I think his point was good because, women in general need to stand up for each other because it's not just women or people of color. It's a fight for equality.
She's 75 years old.
That's true.
She went through some real shit, growing up that she didn't even
Which makes it hard to believe. Well, I was like, well, how can you not stand behind this 100%? Yeah, you're not of color, so you probably didn't have to deal with half of the stuff Serena had to deal with, but the other half you did. So
everybody got a grandmother out there that says some shit they shouldn't be saying. Yeah. And they don't mean to. We give them a pass. You know that.
All right.
On the men's side, we had Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic in the final.
Your two favorite guys?
No, my favorite is Rafa, who lost to Federer in the semifinals. But Roger Federer is the best grass court player of all time, and to me right now, honestly, the best player of all time. And he got dethroned by Novak, which is going to be well on his way to being one of the best of all time as well. He's already This is going to be his 16th Grand Slam. He's 5 years younger than Federer, and Federer's still ahead of him. He's got, I think, 5 more. He's at 21 or 22. So, I mean, it was a good match. It was a crazy match. It went to it.
I saw some highlights.
It was
crazy.
yeah, it dethroned because I think the final in 2009 when Federer played Nadal when Nadal won his first Wimbledon was the longest match, or at least the longest match of Wimbledon, and it was like right under 5 hours. It was like 4 hours,
Jesus,
52 minutes. If you watch that, like the highlights towards the end of it, you can't see nothing, and the camera even brightens it up a little bit. And like apparently, if you were there, like you couldn't see. Very kind of similar to that highlight of what was it, like the Masters, like 2000 whatever, when Tiger Woods.
Yeah, they won at night basically.
Yeah, basically like you couldn't, like the camera's like, yeah, you actually see more in the camera than you did
Right.
in person. And I was like, yeah, they was like you couldn't see nothing. So this match actually was even longer by I want to say like 10, 15 minutes.
Wow.
Jesus,
but right around like the 5 hour mark, and it was basically just back and forth, and it went to I think this is the first time they ever did this too. In the 5th set, they normally play each set gets to go to a tiebreak, but the 5th set they just let go until whatever player wins by 2 games, and then
that's crazy. That's crazy.
But they were just going back and forth, and so they decided. I don't think they decided just now. I think the rule has probably been put in place a long time ago, but they decided it'll go to a tiebreak if the game score matches or reaches 12-12, which they did, 12 games to 12 games. So they went to a tiebreak.
Wow.
And then,
That's how they went to a tiebreak in the 5th set.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or else it probably could have gone another hour.
Wow.
It could have. Yeah.
So
So it was tough.
we don't hear this, but this is probably the best men's tennis that has ever happened, because you have Roger Federer. Right now, he's the greatest by Grand Slams. He has 20 total championships.
I think 21 now.
Well,
20?
what I'm looking at is 20.
Okay.
Yeah, Rafael Nadal has 18,
Wow.
and Djokovic has 16. Right.
That's crazy.
Right. And those are
That's
1,
20,
2, and 3
yeah.
all time.
Yep.
Right. And then, but the problem is America doesn't get to see this or doesn't tune in because it's not Pete Sampras, it's not Andre Agassi, it's not somebody that they can relate to as an American citizen. The last big name that the U.S. has had is probably Andy Roddick, and that was how long ago was that? And
2003.
he could never beat one of those guys. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he had his day, but yeah, the prime of his career was when these guys were coming up, and I was like, man,
right,
he got outshined real fast.
yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and that's right. Like I think since back in that day, in the 90s, and even maybe a little bit in the 80s, man, U.S. was dominating with like
Right.
John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, Pete Sampras, even Michael Chang, who's I think, Chinese,
Yeah, I
but,
remember that.
but he was
I remember
technically he
Chang.
played as an American. So yeah, man, they had some phenomenal players in there.
What about Blake?
Who? James Blake?
Mm-hmm.
James Blake was good, but he was never like elite.
Did he ever win a Grand Slam?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, he
He's
got
a great player.
yeah,
I've seen him play
I
live.
remember.
He's phenomenal.
Oh,
but, yeah. But he's never. Yeah, he's just. It's hard, man. Like tennis is one of those sports. I was talking to people. It's like the gap between like the elite players and even someone who's like right around top 10 is just such a big gap. There's a reason why those same guys are winning again and again. Like I see a lot of those comments on YouTube. People are like, wait, I swear, 15 years ago, I saw some highlights about Roger Federer, and he's still winning. Like, what
Yeah.
the hell's going on? Like,
Because he does seem like he's super old, but he's
he's only 37. Yeah,
he's
I
my
mean,
age, and that's not old.
Did he win the a gold medal or something like that? James White?
in the Olympics. Maybe
Yeah. I remember
They-
him
they
winning
also-
something.
they
I
also
don't
have
remember
the,
exactly what it was.
the Laver Cup. Laver Cup is kind of like the World Cup for tennis, and they do teams by country. I don't really know the history of the Laver Cup or like who's won it, but U.S. is pretty good. But we've had some tough. Like Spain is always tough with like Rafa Nadal and some other
Mhm.
players.
I just remember James Blake because I know there was a big push for him. He was up and coming young star, and I think that America is always trying to look for that next American star, but like I was asking you, is there up and coming like young American star
I
that's
think the closest. I mean, I want to say right now is maybe John Isner, who I want. Yeah, he's tall. He's like man, like 6'6", 6'7", something like that. I think right now holds the record for like the fastest serve ever recorded during like a match at like 157 miles an hour or something like that.
And James Blake never even made a Grand Slam final.
Damn.
Yeah, no. I mean, just around the time he was playing, man, just all those names that I mentioned, even with like Andy Roddick, he was never even really better than Andy Roddick. And Andy Roddick was, to me, a mediocre player at best. If you're comparing to like the world elite.
Oh, okay.
His serve was the best part of his game, but the rest of his game he could never really figure it out.
Damn it, Qual, what do we have to do to put America back in the forefront of tennis?
I don't know who the next phenom is. I don't keep up with like.
Because as an American,
juniors, but
I want America to always be winning.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a minute.
So
you tell the U.S. men's soccer team that too.
Well, why
they played in the Gold Cup final the same day the women did, and
who
lost.
cares about them? I only care about.
You gonna care about them if they win?
I only care about American winners.
Oh my god! You don't care that they made it to the finals?
We knew they were gonna lose.
All right. Well, this I think is the closing of the show. Any shout outs? Anything we're gonna do over the weekend? Anything you got plans?
Qual's actually gonna teach me how to serve a tennis ball. He didn't show me.
That's gonna take a while.
I'm actually pretty athletic. Don't knock it. I might be able to.
Well, we got Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Thurman. No. Not gonna watch this.
What? When did they start doing like a geriatric boxing match? What the fuck?
Thurman's a beast, man.
That's what I'm saying. Why is he even?
Pacquiao still technically holds a belt, right? He's still WBA
he must have
regular
lost
champion.
He must have lost a lot of money gambling for him to still boxing.
Oh, come on, man.
How old is this guy?
Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah.
Probably like 37.
We all know he should be boxing. Not with this guy.
I'll root for him, man.
I'm a root for him, but I mean, come on, man.
I don't know. I mean, he's good TV. He's still good TV. I mean, for whatever it's worth, he's one of the most exciting fighters to ever watch as far as our lifetimes and what he's had to overcome. But he's had 70 fights.
What was one of the worst
Christ.
things that I've ever watched in boxing is George Foreman and Holmes fighting all the way to their like old age, and just like it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
And I just like what's the reasons for Pacquiao to fight? It has to be for money.
I don't know, man. I think he's trying to prove that he still got it. Honestly, and another thing is he holds the belt right now, so he's not just gonna give it up.
Well,
he's coming off 2 wins.
In boxing, there's like 1,000 belts.
That's true. In the WBA alone, which is like I still don't really understand this.
No one does.
They have super champion,
Yeah.
regular champion, and interim champion, which all 3 of them I think hold belts. Some bullshit like that.
It's ridiculous.
Like-
The whole. I mean, for one thing, you may not like UFC, but they pretty much got it.
Oh, that's one thing I do
down
like. They got
as
one
far
belt for each.
Oh, and that's just one of the
great.
federations.
That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So you
So
still
That's
got
what-
like IBF, WBO, the ring, or whatever the hell else, like WBC,
Yeah.
all this bullshit. Like,
That's
what the
why
fuck? Like,
my favorite thing of boxing is when whoever's boxing ends up winning all the belts. I'm like, oh, that's what all the belts look like. That's my only favorite part about boxing.
yeah.
I didn't know there's that
think
many
Mayweather
belts.
was really the last true
He had like every belt.
person to do that. Ruiz right now has made like 3 of them when he won.
We're gonna break this podcast into 2 different podcasts. It's going ridiculous. So yeah, that's I'm probably gonna tune in to watch that fight.
By yourself. You're
We'll
probably
try
gonna watch it
to-
on Facebook, aren't you?
Oh, come
We're-
on, man.
Honestly, we're probably gonna get together and go to a baseball game.
Yeah.
Meet you guys out there and see what's up. See how the Astros doing in person.
Yeah, we'll sign autographs in person if you want to.
There you go.
Well, don't be careful what you sign, because obviously I signed myself a contract in this shit, so that sounds like I'm fucked. I also want to say though,
You said I asked you to sign a jersey. You didn't know it was a paper knee thunder.
God damn it! I will say that please continue to support our podcast. For all those who have subscribed and continue to support us, we really truly appreciate it. And we keep doing it based off of the love and the constant feedback we're getting from you guys. There's not a podcast you can listen to that actually can talk about like equality for women and tennis somehow with as well as Hopkins 99 and Madden. I'm just saying, that's pretty entertaining. Wow, your knowledge of tennis is sexy.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, give us a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe, guys. You have a good night. Thank you.
Peace.
Yeah.
Hop up in my Razor, got 1,000 acres. Ride up on the couch with it, pray that it don't phase her. Yippee, okay. If you ain't got no giddy up, then giddy out my way. I'm gonna take my horse